Welcome to Bible Simplified. Today we take a look at the book of Ecclesiastes. Please join us. Written by King Solomon, son of King David. Let's begin. Summary. The narrator of Ecclesiastes is a nameless person who calls himself a teacher, and identifies himself as the current king of Israel and a son of King David. The teacher opens with the exclamation, "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." He complains that everything in life is endless and meaningless, especially human toil and the cycles of nature, for nothing is ever truly new on earth. As the wisest man in Jerusalem, the teacher feels he is cursed with the unhappy task of discerning wisdom, for he has seen all the deeds that are done under the sun. In a mixture of verses, the teacher compiles his studies, hypotheses, and proverbs regarding wisdom. The teacher tries many earthly pleasures. He drinks, becomes wealthy, acquires power, buys property, experiences sexual gratification, and views artistic entertainment. However, none of these experiences satisfies him. Although the teacher originally assumes that wisdom is better than folly, he realizes that achieving wisdom is a frustrating and elusive pursuit, for the wise and the foolish both die the same death. He concludes that the best humans can do is to honor God and to eat, drink, and enjoy themselves. The teacher also surveys the general trends of human activity. He notes that just as there is time for each good thing in life, such as birth or love, there is always a time for its opposite, such as death or hate. It is often hard for mortal humans to understand the difference between wickedness and justice, but God distinguishes between the two. The teacher notes that human labor is marked by competition, envy, and oppression. The teacher praises the virtues of human cooperation, noting the advantages that a team of 2 or 3 individuals has over one person alone. Next, the teacher discusses various foolish actions, such as gluttony, the love of money, and excessive talking. The teacher provides a series of instructions for avoiding such foolishness. Mourning, he claims, is better than feasting, and the end of things is better than the beginning. He also encourages people to be neither too righteous nor too wicked but to remain moderate. Still, the teacher remains bothered by the fact that both evil and good people meet the same fate. He grows tired of discussing the distinctions between good and bad, clean and unclean, obedient and disobedient. The teacher gives positive exhortations. He encourages humans to enjoy their vain lives and activities to the fullest. People must embrace the unforeseen chances of life, since caution only impedes God's providence. He urges young people to remain happy and to follow their inclinations, reminding them to always remember God. The things of earth are only temporary, and life is a cycle that eventually returns to God. The teacher also warns the reader against heeding too many wise sayings, for the study of wisdom never ends. The end of the matter, he concludes, is for humans to fear God and to obey His commandments. Analysis. The book of Ecclesiastes is a notoriously confusing portion of the Old Testament. The teacher is uncertain and ambiguous in his writing. His claims suggest that the teacher is the great King Solomon, the son of King David, whom God blesses with powers of immense wisdom. The frequent changes in tone make it unclear whether the teacher intends his comments to describe how humans naturally behave or to tell people how they should behave. Vanity, which means breath of the wind, connoting uselessness and deceptiveness. Indeed, the teacher's confusing style may be a means to reinforce his argument that human wisdom is essentially limited or vain. Chapter 1, The Words of the Teacher. In the first chapter, King Solomon introduces himself as the teacher and speaks about the monotony of life. He declares, "Vanity of vanities. All is vanity." Solomon observes the cycles of nature and comments on how the earth remains the same despite the ceaseless efforts of mankind. Furthermore, Solomon reflects on the pursuit of wisdom. He confesses that, despite all his wisdom and knowledge, it only brought him sorrow and grief. He concludes that the accumulation of knowledge and the pursuit of wisdom are meaningless. Chapter 2, The Vanity of Pleasure. Solomon recounts his experiences as he indulged in worldly pleasures. He engages in laughter, wine, grand projects, and accumulates wealth. He surrounds himself with all the pleasures that a king could have, yet finds that it all amounts to chasing after the wind. Towards the end of the chapter, Solomon reflects on the limitations of human wisdom. He points out that both the wise and the foolish share the same fate, which is death. Solomon finds no lasting value in wisdom or pleasure, as all human efforts and achievements are fleeting. Chapter 3, A Time for Everything. Chapter 3 starts with one of the most famous passages in Ecclesiastes, where Solomon states that there is a time for everything under the heavens. He lists 28 seasons of life, including times to be born, die, plant, reap, weep, laugh, mourn, and dance. Following this, Solomon discusses the idea of divine justice. He acknowledges the role of God in determining the times and seasons of life. He encourages enjoying the simple things in life and recognizing that they are gifts from God. Chapter 4, Oppression, Toil, and Friendships. In this chapter, Solomon considers the tears of the oppressed. He acknowledges the powerlessness of the oppressed and ponders over the dead who are free from the troubles of life. Solomon also reflects on the fruitlessness of labor and striving out of envy or rivalry. In contrast, Solomon then speaks about the value of companionship. He highlights the benefits of having a friend and the strength that comes from numbers, using the example of a cord of 3 strands not being easily broken. Chapter 5, Fear God. Chapter 5 begins with Solomon advising caution in God's presence. He counsels against making rash vows and encourages speaking less and listening more. He also observes the vanity in amassing riches, as one cannot know who will enjoy them after one's death. Moreover, Solomon distinguishes between the sleep of a laborer and that of a rich man. The former sleeps sweetly irrespective of the quantity of food, while the latter's abundance doesn't let him sleep. He acknowledges that it is good to enjoy the simple blessings of eating, drinking, and finding satisfaction in work. Chapter 6, The Vanity of Wealth. Solomon continues to reflect on the vanity of wealth. He talks about a man who has been blessed with wealth, possessions, and honor but lacks the ability to enjoy them. Solomon considers this an affliction and reiterates that wealth doesn't satisfy the desires of the soul. He also emphasizes the futility of a long life that is not enjoyed or appreciated. He argues that an untimely birth is better than a life lived in darkness and discontent. The chapter closes with Solomon asserting that despite all human efforts to find meaning, they can't fathom what life under heaven is all about. Chapter 7, The Value of Practical Wisdom. Chapter 7 opens with Solomon comparing the value of a good name to precious ointment. He speaks about the wisdom that can be gained through reflecting on death rather than frivolously celebrating life. He advises that sorrow can be better than laughter as it refines the heart. Solomon also cautions against longing for the good old days and highlights the importance of patience over pride. He acknowledges that righteousness and wickedness both have their place, and it's wise not to be overly righteous or overly wicked. Wisdom, Solomon asserts, provides strength and protection. Chapter 8, Obey the King. In the 8th chapter, Solomon talks about the wisdom of obeying the king's command. He discusses the wise heart knowing the proper time and procedure for every matter. He encourages patience and acknowledges that no one can predict when hard times will come. Furthermore, Solomon observes that while wickedness may seem to go unpunished, in the long run, it's still better to fear God. He acknowledges the limitations of human understanding and wisdom, as people cannot fully grasp God's work or comprehend what will happen in the future. Chapter 9, Enjoy Life with the One You Love. Chapter 9 begins with Solomon reflecting on the common destiny shared by the righteous and the wicked, which is death. He emphasizes the finality of death and encourages the living to live fully because the dead know nothing. Solomon then urges readers to enjoy their lives and find satisfaction in their toil, as these are gifts from God. He also advises enjoying time with loved ones. The chapter concludes with a story of a small city saved by the wisdom of a poor man, yet the man's wisdom was quickly forgotten. Chapter 10, The Pitfalls of Folly. In Chapter 10, Solomon contrasts wisdom and folly. He explains how just a little folly can overshadow wisdom and honor. He talks about the unpredictability of life and the foolishness of making hasty decisions. He also warns against speaking ill of the king and the dangers of laziness. Furthermore, Solomon offers practical advice, such as the importance of calmness in resolving issues and the value of wise words. He reiterates that wisdom, though often overlooked or underestimated, is a valuable asset in handling life's challenges. Chapter 11, Invest in Many Ventures. Chapter 11 encourages diversifying investments, akin to casting your bread upon the waters. Solomon uses metaphors to discuss taking risks and being generous, as one never knows what misfortune may occur. He advises not waiting for perfect conditions to take action, as those who watch the wind will not sow. He also speaks to the youth, urging them to be joyful but mindful that God will judge youthful deeds. He advocates for an awareness of the brevity of youth and the importance of remembering the Creator before old age. Chapter 12, Remember Your Creator. In the final chapter, Chapter 12, Solomon reminds the reader to remember the Creator in their youth. He uses metaphors to describe the difficulties and ailments of old age. He portrays life's cycle and the eventual return of the human spirit to God who gave it. As the chapter progresses, Solomon emphasizes the importance of heeding the words of the wise. He concludes the book by reiterating that the essence of human life is to fear God and keep His commandments. The final verses mention that every deed will be brought into judgment, whether good or evil. With this sobering reminder, the book of Ecclesiastes comes to a close. King Solomon, through a series of reflections, observations, and wisdom-laden advice, paints a picture of life's vanities and the ultimate importance of focusing on God. I hope this in-depth Bible study on the book of Ecclesiastes was helpful to you. Please join us as we explore more of the most powerful book ever written in the world, the Bible. God bless.